This is just going to be a couple ideas for writing music. The song I'm going over is a symphonic metal song that I wrote. This song is in the key of the Ukrainian Dorian or Ultra Dorian scale, which is just D minor with augmented 4th and 6th. So here's D minor. Now here's D Ultra Dorian. That's a harmonic minor mode, where in this case you take a harmonic minor and start on the 4th, which is the note D. I'm gonna go over guitar riffs first, then drum parts. The first riff is the chorus riff. Making parts on instruments, I like to mess around, like play on that instrument until I get something cool, because you can manipulate the part to fit your skill level. I do keep a couple things in mind to help me though. With this riff, I kept 3 things in mind. First is the type of chords. I just use power chords, or like fifths, like 1, 5, together. That's a power chord. Second is the rhythm. I want to just put in some triplets, so on beat 2 I had full groupings of triplets and a couple triplets at the end of the riff too. Last is the pulse, like whether or not you want it syncopated or an emphasis on just the downbeats, which is what I did for this riff, or if you just want like held out chords, and the drums will definitely help with this. I'll talk about that later. Keeping this in mind, I could have made this the riff. Next is a common death metal riff. Pretty much just pick random notes of a scale, then play each note multiple times. In this case, I just picked each note twice. So I played that 4 times for the riff. When I make riffs like this where you play something multiple times, I don't like to play the same thing over and over again. That kind of gets boring. Instead, I'll change it up a bit to keep it more interesting and keep the flow up, like adding or taking out some notes, or adding another voice or like harmony. So the second time I play it, I change some notes at the end. The 4th time, I make the rhythm twice as slow, then add some notes to make some power chords. Those last 2 notes of the riff are like pickup notes. They transition to the next riff. In this case, I had notes leading up to the next riff. Other transition ideas is like pickup notes from another voice, or changing the rhythm a bit, or having a breath of silence, or simply a drum fill. For these next 2 riffs, they follow what's called a sequence. You take a part, then shift it up or down. In this case, it goes up twice, then down. So here's a part. Pitch shift it up again, then down. The repeat after is similar, but keeps going up, plus adds another voice, the trumpet, which is a harmony. You can even transpose it to have all the intervals be exactly the same, but I changed the intervals a little to fit the notes in the scale, or to have like easier stretches on the guitar. The other riff has the sequence theme too. I took this part, then brought it down. For this riff, I kind of had imitation, not exactly, but in other sections of the song, different voices played the same notes of this riff, but different rhythm, like in the intro here. Then in the outro here, where I make many different variations. Now for the drums, I went between making parts and playing the instrument and notating directly on MuseScore. I always create the guitar riffs first, so I make the drums follow its rhythm. If notating or programming it, I make sure the drum part correlates with the guitar's rhythm and accents. If I'm playing it on the instrument, I keep in mind the accents of the riff and decide where or how fast the pulse is. Usually the pulse is decided by the cymbal hits, like how in the chorus it feels slower than the verse. So here's the chorus. And here's the verse. In the chorus section, I didn't put any 16th notes, 16th triplets, or miss the downbeat like how the guitar part is. I wanted a strong pulse on each downbeat, so I didn't make it like syncopated at all. Drums are very useful for transitions, like doing drum fills that foreshadow the next part, unless you want the next part to hit hard and sudden. In that case, you could even have the drums rest right before a section to come in. For this transition, it slows down the rhythm, which works well for the next part being felt slower in both these cases. The ways to keep this sections interesting is progressing the drums or changing the beats like how I did in the verse here. Last thing I'll talk about is the odd time sections and the sections that had a changing pulse. This section is the death metal riff and typically they have blast beats, but I want to have an odd time feel. Since it's a 9/8, I divided it evenly by hitting the bass drum every 2 beats, so at the end it feels rushed because it has to play on beat 1 of the next measure, and to emphasize it I added crash cymbals. Now for this section I had a 7/4 riff, but the drums stay in 4/4, ignoring the odd time signature unlike the other section I just showed. Here's the 7/4 riff. Now with the drums. Lastly is the refrain. I wanted this riff at this length, didn't want to shorten it, so I added the extra voice and changed the pulse of the drums a couple times. First it's slower, then faster, then does that again. You can even look at it as 2 pulses in a measure, then 3, then back to 2, and lastly 6. Before changing the pulse of the part, I put fills to ease into each of them better. I don't really think about the fills too much, just make sure it fits in with everything else. Let me know what you think of the song, I'm willing to answer any questions. I do plan on recording this song on all real instruments someday and releasing it. It'll be called Identity Relinquishment.